if you prefer winning over losing, then I'm sure that you will like this video. Also, if you're fed up with solo queuing, then I have a very active Discord server. Make sure to hop on and say hi. Timestamps are available for all three categories. There will be 4 numbers in this video. More about them can be found in the comments section. The first one is not being confident enough. How often do you end up in a situation where you have drawn out someone, let's say on T3 on Oregon, and you're afraid of challenging him? Or if you're a defender, you're afraid to be slightly bit more aggressive or than the attackers pushing for the bedroom on Villa when defending Avian games. This is a huge issue for mainly attackers, because most of the time you will drone defenders out. They will destroy your drone and you will be afraid of pushing them. Or if you're going to use the Zophia's Concash mine onto a roamer, let's say VIP on Cafe, and you won't do anything with it. All that you are doing here is wasting your utility at the cost of nothing. The fewer drones you have, the fewer flashbangs you have, or overall the less utility you have to push the power positions, the less likely you will win the round. The same thing applies to the defenders. The takers get the top-down control pretty quickly into the round, and you lack of the C4s to contest it. The main thing should be how to regain the vertical control. As we'll see Gorgona measuring that in the FPL match, after he used his C4.
Let me fucking see for
Running
something.
main stairs.
One on.
This out, don't you?
I lost my C4.
Ash is on the door. Side door.
We need to
Do
retake,
you have
guys,
info
main
for it or
stairs.
not?
How can defenders stall the attackers' plan by the default on bank if they don't have the vertical control and just a few plan denial? With the Yokai drone, that will be shut down instantly, and Kite C4, that is just one. And also in the higher ranks, it's not as hard to destroy a C4. The only way of defenders winning this round is to have at least 2 people more confident and start regaining the open control area. For example, you can directly contest them, or go even to the second floor through the hatches to contest the attackers by the open. Another similar thing to consider is being overconfident. This is mainly for the people that think they have won a map after having a 3-0 score. Especially on the maps that are heavily attack or defended favored. Usually maps in ranked are defender favored, since most people that mainly play ranked don't know how to play the game properly. Overconfidence also may come due to the overlays and checking your opponent's stats, or if you're in a 4 vs 1 situation. Overconfidence loses you a lot of rounds, and the best example will be, for example, if you know that someone is in the office on coast and you're trying to push him and forgetting how there could be another guy either on the hatch, in the aqua, or in the sun. This is very similar to being tunnel visioned to an enemy or to destroy utility, and it's usually because of the overconfidence. We'll talk more about this in defend, but what happens when defenders are overconfident is that the attackers will get the map control instantly the moment someone, for example on the yellow stairs, speaks a bit more aggressive toward the skylight. This doesn't necessarily mean a power position. It can also be if roamers are overconfident and they get slapped within first minute. Attackers will immediately get the access of the top-down pressure or the execution. The final thing about this will be operator lineups. Getting too comfortable with just one lineup is not ideal. It's better to know when to bring the situational operators rather than going with 4 default picks and then 1 unique pick. This doesn't mean that you should be maining everyone, because no one can main everyone. But this means that you should know which operator to bring in which situation. The best example will be Nomad and Valkyrie. Valkyrie is great on all maps, but exceptionally well for Consulate, Coastline, and Chalet. What Nomad allows you is to have someone repelling on the big window of the bedroom on Chalet, or to have someone repelling on the CO Consulate windows, or just to play normally on Coastline. The main reason I have mentioned these 3 maps is that the way to defend these 3 maps is with more aggression and more runouts. Nomad could be replaced with a drone watching flanks, but then you usually need one dead guy watching it. On the other hand, knowing when to use Oryx like on Coastline as a Pro League team will do, is pretty neat. Or when Clash is extremely strong like on Oregon or Villa will basically give you 3 rounds. This also applies to solo queue, knowing when to go for alibi versus when to go for pulls versus when to go for mute in the solo queue will give you easier wins. We'll talk more about this on the attack, but to know which operators are strong on which maps or even objectives, then you need to know how to defend and how to attack. All of this and even more can be found on my MetaFi page, among just the best coaches in Siege. Let's see things that can be more applied to attack rather than defense, but some still will be applied to defense. The first thing is not understanding how to defend. Understanding how to defend is the first step of understanding how to attack. Let's take an example of a scrim that a student sent me to do an analysis on MetaFi. They have allowed me to use this example. This castle barricade is immediately what should question you if you want to do a normal attack or not. The main idea behind having hold around cocktail when defending reading and fireplace, but not necessarily extended to piano, but you can, is that the attackers cannot play vertically on reading. With this castle barricade and a barricade between the new hatch and the cocktail, and unless castle barricade was meleeed 11 times, attackers will have a lot of easier time getting the top floor control. It might be important to note how there is no rotation between cocktail and bar. Or another example would be if there are no defenders in Janitor. This example happened in Pengus or Shattez Go 4 if I remember correctly. And you are attacking Sion Conference. That's free round. The hardest part of this attack is how to push away defenders in Janitor and if possible to get your guy in a Janitor. When you get that, you can start to default plant. Janitor in this objective is basically blue in Clubhouse or 90 on Villa. Understanding how to defend is the main thing of understanding how to attack. And on MetaFi we have a lesson that goes through 16 strats on one map, with addition of pro clips, strats, and clips from the pro streamers, like Uno, Pengu, Foxa, Butters, and much more. Obviously, understanding how to adapt as a defender is also crucial, but adapting is required for the attack. Another thing is preparation phase drones. It hurts to see when famous creators tell you how you should be saving the drone in the preparation phase. I'm not telling you to get it destroyed, but what you should do is to have at least 2 drones inside of the building, in a smart way, during the preparation phase. If you're going to save all 5 drones at the very start outside, you basically lost 45 seconds of the action phase for nothing. You have zero intel of what defenders are doing, with how many operators they are playing off the side, where they are. You're basically going in building blindly, needing to drone further. What can help you is knowing drone parkours like on the Clubhouse one, which is again taken from my MetaFi page, or the one on the coastline to get to the Aqua. For example, with these 2 drones you can fully see how many defenders are on the second floor of coastline, as well as where they are, since you will see them going on the stairs and you can see if they are going towards Penthouse VIP side or towards Hookah Z side. Similar to this can be said to defenders, checking for the default preparation phase drones. In higher ranks, getting a drone on this lamp is very strong during the preparation phase, because you can hear and see anyone going towards the Astra side. One more thing about the attacking, which also can be applied for defense, is communication. Communication on the attack is a lot more important than on defense. It's better to have 10 eyes than just your 2 eyes. For example, if you know that Clash is around E-Box on Oregon, then it's fair to assume how there will be no roamers aside from possibly T1 at the early stage. Still, don't go blindly, but just knowing that Clash is there gives you a lot of intel around her. Or for example, if you are being pushed heavily from dirt on Clubhouse, like 2 attackers are pushing you, then it is fair to assume how the rest of the attackers won't drone thoroughly the map, which allows you to play on more red spots than usual. Using 2 attackers to push dirt at the very start leaves only 3 attackers to do the 5-man roam push on Clubhouse. There have to be gaps on the attack, and if your team communicated it well, it's fairly easy to abuse it. And that is another important aspect to talk about on the MetaFi VOD reviews. The biggest issue of this is, these are all indirect information. The easiest information is when you see someone on the camera, but the hard one is to understanding the whole plot of the attacker's push just from seeing Capito, for example. A very complex topic to open here is as a stack, and I will be short. You rotate too quickly from point A to point B, or you contest an angle before you were supposed to. For example, you don't need to rappel on the night window if you're still roam hunting around Astronomy against the Aviator and Games push. And you don't need to rotate to the east balcony on Cafe if you don't have Piano in control. I have just touched a bit of this in here to give you some thoughts to think. But as already mentioned, if you truly want to learn Siege how it's supposed to be played, I will recommend going to my Metafy page. Let's immediately talk about something that we have mentioned. That is playing overconfident in power positions. Or generally speaking, playing in power positions. Garage and Clubhouse will be one if you're defending Cache and Gym, but a less known power position that is being talked among YouTube is Office when defending Gym and Bedroom. From Office, you're basically connecting extended hold roamers with anchors. You're allowing anchors to play just against Jacuzzi Breach or 52-53 windows. As long as you have Office, neither of your roamers or anchors can be flanked, since you can also hear and deny the mainstair crouch walk push. You also have a deep angle towards the CC. The Office is very important to have in control, because if attackers get in, defenders cannot play in the toilet or objectives safe anymore. Similar to the Piano and Chalet when holding Bedroom and Office. Piano is the room that connects Aqua Hold with Office. And if Piano falls, that means anyone playing around Bedroom or Aqua is exposed. And also no one from defenders can go to the half wall to deny the plant. I cannot stress this enough, but be on the outside cameras the moment action phase starts. That's the very first intel you will get in the round. The best way to adapt and adjust your utility against the attacker's push. This is extremely important for the maps like Oregon, where on the majority of the objectives there are 2 if not more ways of attacking. Switching shield in pillars, facing blue, to shield facing freezer might be ideal. A lot of the times, even at the Pro League, teams won't spawn in every spawn, which will lead to at least one outside camera being alive for the first 5 seconds. So that's your best way to get the very first intel in the round. The last thing that I will touch over here is bad usage of utility. Not just barbed wires on stairs, or when to use barbed wires for the sound cues versus when to use it for the utility waste. It's about expanding your utility for your roamers. The same reason why you don't play fire 4-man tank in most of the objectives, the same mindset should be with the utility. No point of having everything put in the objective if you allow attackers to get full map control within 2 minutes. That's a round lost immediately. Aid your roamers with utility, and that utility will also allow anchors to help roamers even more.